Now, have you ever driven through your village, your town, your city and seen a large block of land which has been bought over by developers and it just sits there and nothing happens to it for weeks, months, years, dare I say decades? The government is unveiling new plans aiming to speed up house building and put an end to what they called land banking as part of the new proposals. House builders will have to commit to delivering timeframes before they get planning permissions. They can't just buy land and leave it sitting there with no plan and no time frame. Those sitting on land could see sites acquired by councils where there's a case of public interests. And Rico Wojtulewicz, who is the head of policy and marketing insight for the National Federation of Builders, joins me now. Rico, you say land banking is a myth. Why is that the case?
Because we've had extensive and multiple reviews on whether land banking exists. And every single time, the result is it doesn't exist. It's a bit annoying that I keep having to discuss this conspiracy theory. But, you know, I understand why it's out there because most people don't understand the planning process. And it may happen in, 0.1% of cases. And that is obviously frustrating. But when you release policy changes to change that 0.1% that affect the rest of the industry.
How accurate is that 0.1? Is that?
Well, look, look. It basically it doesn't happen, and the reason I say is because if you're a house builder, your job is to build houses. So if you have a piece of land you can build on, you will build on it. If you're a landowner or a land promoter or an investor, you may think to yourself, "I've got this piece of land. I can't make it work at this stage because I can't find anyone to build it, so maybe I'll sell it on." But the rub here is that the local authorities, the ones that are complaining about this, they often are the ones that allocate that site in their local. So when you build, say a local authority's got to deliver 2,000 homes over 5 years or whatever it might be, they allocate sites for that. So if they go to the landowner and they go, "Oh yeah, we'll allocate your site," and they go, "Have you got planning?" "No, we haven't got full planning." "Have you got a developer a builder to build it?" "No, we don't." And they go, "That's fine, we'll allocate it anyway." That's not the house building industry's fault that the local authority, the council, is allocating that site. And that's the thing that's been missed here by the government, which is a bit frustrating because you're penalising house builders for something that house builders don't cause.
So in essence, what you're saying is land banking potentially does exist, if you bear with me a wee second, yep. But it's not the fault of the actual physical builder of the houses. It could be the fact that somebody has bought that, an investor has bought that, a developer has bought that, and it still hasn't been handed over to the building industry to create the housing. You're saying the misnomer is built around what is meant by land banking rather than the existence of land banking.
That's one element. You're completely correct. That's one element. The other two bits are... you might buy a site to deliver, and then all the local people go, "Why is it not being delivered?" Well, you might not be able to get utilities like water, like electricity to that site. And until you can get those services, you can't start the site. You might have something called what's a pre-commencement condition. So you can't commence building that project until you have X, Y, and Z satisfied. And it's the councils that make the decision as to what those conditions are. So if they can't deliver that condition, they can't start the project, and that's deemed again land banking.
But surely then what's been said, the new proposals where house builders will have to commit to a delivery timeframe. Surely if the government is saying that this helps the builders because they can in essence say, well, hold on a second, you want to move on land banking, therefore making it easier for planning permission, easier to get access, easier to get the facilities in. Surely this is a positive for the building industry.
In a world where we live in a planning system that is certain, yes, that's not the UK planning system. What I'm really worried about, and it's what's previously happened, is this is just going to be a big win for the legal system and for lawyers who are going to make a lot of money from this as people argue why I can't deliver it. The government's going to literally have 30, 40, 50, 100 exemptions. And we already have a similar system already called a completion notice. So when a council thinks that a site should be completed, they serve what's called a completion notice. Quite often developers come back and they have to have an argument for a few months and say, look, we can't complete it for X, Y, and Z reasons. And the council decides when and why it should be completed. So you might not have any windows, you might not have any services, you might not have any kitchen, but the council goes, well, our rules say that we think it should be delivered within this 3-year time frame, or when we think is ready, so we're going to serve this completion notice.
Okay.
And what that triggers is every property on that site then has to pay council tax.
Now, I sat in this very seat in the build-up of to the last election, and the Labour Party said that they was going to try and chop and cut out red tape. Yeah. Just very quickly, do you think this is their ability to try and start this process, and how confident would you be that potentially a lot of that red tape could be cut out?
Look, they've done some good things, and they've been really hamstrung by the last government who made things really difficult. But at the moment, what they've really done is they've tweaked a few things, and they've put us back to the position we were 2 years ago. There's a really important factor here. I will give the government credit on one thing. We've been campaigning for site sizes to be recognised, because if you build a site of 11 homes, you're treated almost the same as one that's built 1,000. The government has said they'll have less than 50 home sites not included in this proposal. That's sensible. Okay. But we need them to be more ambitious and actually start defining sites as like 50, 100 and 250. Okay. Because that would really help us and help them make planning reforms work. Otherwise, we're just layering bureaucracy over a broken system. All right, Rico Wojtulewicz, who is the Head of Policy and Market Insight for the National Federation of Builders. Thanks for